first part, we looked at education and learning through the lens of Bildung, where we looked at horizontal learning, where we accumulate information and opposed to vertical learning, where we integrate this information and we prioritize and we look at from ethical, emotional, and contextual understanding. Today we are flooded with horizontal knowledge, facts, data, information that's streaming constantly through our phones and through our computers, which you might conclude that vertical learning is more important than ever. As a headmaster of a school, I find this really interesting topic, and it's relevant to my work, but here we are talking about it in the context of our ongoing journey, lifelong learning, because I mean, as I see it as human beings, that's a part of being a human being, is constantly learning. It's a lifelong journey. As a scholar called L.D. Fink puts it, everybody makes everyone else understand how they live life in their own way and learns from everyone else in the process. Everyone teaches, even though they don't want to be a teacher. Insofar as people exist socially, they are constant witnesses and proclaimers of existential truth. So this is the topic to our second session, knowledge. How do we know what we know? The word itself in English is epistemology, coming from Greek, simply meaning the study of knowledge. So this involves some terms and concepts that sound complicated, even scary. If you might be scared when you hear them. But actually these are terms that you actually already know, that you know these things if you put them in context. This is a way of thinking of, something that has been happening for the last century, change of how we approach things, how we know things. We are just putting it into a particular framework that simplifies things, helps understanding, and it's also kind of a necessary stepping stone towards our journey in coming courses, where we start looking at ourselves and who we are. And to the challenging stuff, we can distinguish like two approaches in epistemology, a traditional one and a radical or phenomenological one. Horrible concepts, right? Sounds scary. Traditional epistemology aligns closely with horizontal knowledge. It deals with like logical reasoning, mathematics, and factual correctness. To know something is to have a belief that it's true and be able to back it up with good reasons. The goal is to be certain of some things that anybody could agree on. 2 + 2 is 4 is a universal truth. Fake news on social media can be verified as false because it contradicts facts that can be verified. This approach is of course necessary, especially maybe nowadays when we are in a world where the most powerful person in the world spews out statements that are lies, that can easily be proved wrong. But in itself, traditional approach does not solve the problem we have, the horizontal approach. Information overload, evaluation, and prioritizing. We are surrounded by good, solid knowledge, but what is important? How do we prioritize? It's still this problem still remains. And then we go to the radical or phenomenological epistemology. This is a mouthful, right? By contrast, this is corresponding to the vertical knowledge. It does not deny that 2 plus 2 is 4, but it points out that such a statement does not exist in vacuum. The meaning of facts depends on culture, history, and a personal experience. Knowledge is never the same for everybody. We do not have a direct access to the world as it is. Everything is filtered through some context, memory, and interpretation. We are always like one foot or one toe or whatever in a kind of a matrix or an illusion. In some ways, computers or information technology has helped us to maybe to understand our brains better, our mind. In the questionnaire we asked, like, computers have cookies. In what way could we say that people also have cookies? In last version of the questionnaire I added caches, cookies and caches. Caches are larger files that are downloaded from website containing the part of the website that don't change often. So they save time, they save energy, so instead of next time I go to this website, I don't download the whole website. I already have a part of it in my website, in my computer, and so what I have in my computer merges with new information from the website appearing on the screen as something that I have downloaded. So this saves time, this saves energy. So in the questionnaire, some of you answered that cookies or caches are like memories, things we sense, we remember, and we store. That's true, but it's only partly true. They have this particular function that differs from other downloads into our computer. Human mind works in a similar way. Our memory is like a hard drive. Consciousness is like the RAM, the what we hold at each time in the consciousness. Getting stuff from the memory, from the hard drive. Our senses, our seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. This is our downloads. So that it enters our consciousness, but it merges with our personal cookies and caches, which are like our particular stuff, memories, expectation, values, and everything, our priority. Maybe like in the first moments of our lives, we are maybe a blank paper, there is nothing, zeros there, so we sense reality like it is, but after that we start to gather these cookies and caches, and so it's not just, we are not sensing things, we are reconstructing things, taking in the download and adding our own cookies and caches to it. And this, of course, explains why sometimes we see things that are not there. When I'm fishing, for example, and this is to do with my expectation of what I want. I want to see a fish, so there's a rock there and I see a fish, only to realize somewhat later this is a rock, to my disappointment. Also, when people take drugs, LSD, mushrooms, they see things and hear things that are not there, so it's kind of their caches coming in, and you might also argue that what people see in a religious experience, people see birds, doves, and that this is coming from the same source. The Argentinian thinker Mario Rodriguez Cobos, Silo, which is the kind of laid the ground for the humanism that I was exposed to in the early 80s. He calls this like sense interpretation. We don't see things or hear things purely. It's kind of, we interpret it at the same time and we create something new. Modern science and neuroscience support this, and perception is not passive recording but active construction. Similar ideas actually exist from long ago, from Buddhism. There is a text on Buddha talking about the riddle of perception, how we perceive things, and this is like more than 2,000 years ago. In Confucian thought and in Eastern philosophy. So, if you're getting a little bit confused at this point, then that's a really positive sign, because this is a kind of thing that, if you really dive into this, it should make you a little bit maybe dizzy or confused. That's what at least my experience when I was going into this some couple of decades ago. It puts also, like, if you look at education, the part of the success of the Finnish system was like to have teaching and learning in relation, in context with real life, So it's actually connected to real life, not just isolated, abstract, not attached to anything. You're learning mathematics, like dividing things in 2 or 3 or 4, but if you connect it to a pizza that you have to split among some people, then your brain is making, your consciousness is making more connection, and it will have a deeper root in your brain, in your consciousness, and you will learn it better. If we exclude Donald Trump, most lies that are told in like political debate are not like factual lies. You have something that's true in a traditional sense, it's a true fact. You have maybe you're talking about the same statistic, but you take something and you put it forward as a fact and as like the most important thing, whereas maybe just a minor thing and not of importance. So we are, from the radical point of view, it's a lie basically. So you find two political parties talking about the same statistics, and they are like speaking about totally different things. You can present that you're talking about the GDP of a country, like the economical turnover, and one is much higher than the other, so you might conclude that's better. But then you look at things and you realize that the main wealth is in the hand of few, so most people are maybe similar, not better off. And it would be interesting to if you can think of some examples before our next session. Other things for our next session. In addition to that, for our next session, I want you to consider a couple of things. The British comedian Ricky Gervais, he said something like, remember, when you're dead, you don't know you are dead. It's only painful for others. The same applies when you're stupid. So, this is of course a joke, but it has some epistemological value. The question is for you, how do you know that you're not stupid? All right? Second, in his essay from 1729, A Modest Proposal, Jonathan Swift, a novelist, he wrote Gulliver's Travels, which many people know. He was also a clergyman or priest. He suggested in this essay that poor Irish farmers would sell their children as food for the wealthy. His arguments were many. and they were presented in a style of a traditional reasoning logic. It would reduce starvation and a lot of other benefits. I will put most of his arguments in our WhatsApp group so you can have a look at it. And I want you to look at them and question, are his arguments wrong? So this is all for now. Look forward seeing you next Saturday.